Come all you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
The largest union talk radio program in these southern United States. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host Adam Keller is out today. Lousy, lazy union members not coming into work. Just totally, really disappointing kind of stuff here. No, obviously, even though he's not here, he is still working. He is on his way down to Guntersville to give a speech spreading the gospel of unionism. But if you have anything to add, you can give us a call. The phone number is 844-899-TVLR. The voicemails are open right now. We will take live calls later in the program. We do have a voicemail from last week that we will get to later in the show. So you can leave voicemails at any time throughout the week. You can call this number any time of day or night, 2 in the morning, 844-899-TVLR. You can call it. It won't wake me up. I'll just find it later on, and I'll respond to it or not. Sometimes we get them, and I'm like, I don't want to play that because it's lame. It's boring, not interesting. So if you leave me an interesting voicemail, we might respond to it on the next program. And if you don't, then we won't. We do have in the studio, though, Jeff, a local organizer with the 5051 organization. He is a person who's lived here locally for quite a while, has gotten involved in the 5051, and he is kind of the lead organizer for the protest that is happening at Big Spring Park today at 2 p.m. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be speaking at it. So if you want to come and see me, if you want to come and heckle me, you can come to that to Big Spring Park at 2 p.m. We've got a clip playing. We shouldn't be. Don't know why that's happening. So 2 p.m. Big Spring Park. I'm going to be there. I'll be speaking. So come and hang out with me if you would like. I think it's really important. And Jeff is here to talk to us about the event and why he's doing it. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. So give us the top line on what's happening at Big Spring Park at 2 p.m.
Yeah, so at Big Spring Park is the local protest for the Hands Off National Day of Action. This is a coalition with several nonpartisan organizations, 5051, Indivisible, Women's March, and many others have put on a National Day of Action today. And there are over 1,000 events across the nation. This is just us for the locally, and we're here to stand up for our rights, stand up for our jobs, stand up against executive overreach and authoritarianism.
I appreciate it. I think it's all really important. We'll talk some more about some of the discrete actions or some of the discrete problems that folks are having with the administration. And I know that you've been spending a lot of time putting this together. You've been spending a lot of time, doing this kind of stuff. And so, I'm constantly hearing how much money folks like you are getting paid from George Soros. So my questions are, one, how much is George Soros paying you? And why have I not gotten my check yet? What's going on with that?
I mean, if we're talking about organizers on the left getting money from George Soros, I want to know where my check is. I think it's a complete false narrative that's being pushed. The 5051 movement is a completely volunteer organization. There are no paid people in it. We are decentralized, so we don't even have a national board. We come together as a collective of states and decide our path forward and go from there. Local organizers like myself are putting their own money into it. Mm-hmm. I am paying for supplies to go into this protest, flyers, advertisements, things like that. I saw the other day Joe Rogan had a picture of someone with a single sheet that had chants printed on it, and that was suddenly evidence that the protesters were being paid. I just want to say, Joe Rogan, that's like 10-cent copy at Office Depot. Like, the organizers are putting their own money into this. Like, it's just a complete false narrative.
Yeah, you mean that you mean to tell me that you have the money in your own bank account to write notes on? That's crazy. That's definitely the hallmarks of a well-funded organization there. But yeah, no, we get stuff like that all the time, and people, one of my favorite things is people talking about, how much money the big union bosses make, and it's like literally the highest paid union official in the country makes like $600,000 a year, which is probably too much, frankly. But how much is the highest paid boss in the country? Well, that's Elon Musk. He's worth $400 billion. So, I think there's a pretty big difference there. And most union officials, I know this for a fact, most union officials are actually volunteers, just like just like the 5051 organizers here locally and across the country. Most union stewards do that stuff on their own time. They go and read case law on their own time. They go and take these trainings on their own time. And so that's what I've done. So yeah, the idea that you have to be paid to be frustrated with what this administration is doing is just so kind of laughable on its face that I don't think that most people actually really believe that kind of stuff. And so what is the real reason that you have decided to get involved in this way and in this organization to try to put together events like this?
Yeah, so I've actually been involved in the organizing community for a couple of years now. And what really got me going this time around, what really spooled me up with 5051. So I guess I'll talk to it first. It's a brand new organization. It's only 2 months old and was created in response to all the unlawful executive orders that the Trump administration was putting out. And I guess for me personally, I got laid off during all of this. So 2 months ago, in February, 1,400 employees of my company were let off with a 15-minute notice. And it's a major aerospace contractor for the government. So, I mean, I am directly affected by this. My parents are educators. My sister it works with the postal office. My brother gets most of the money from his company comes from NIOSH, and my grandparents are on Social Security and Medicaid. So, like, I am very personally affected by the decisions this administration is putting and the effect that it is having on everyday American lives. And I'm not a special case. Like, there are that I would say it would be hard to find somebody who is not affected by the decisions this administration is pushing and the cuts that DOGE is chainsawing through our federal government.
Right. Yeah, and doing it with such glee, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these people, these oligarchs like Elon Musk and the folks in the Trump administration really are just reveling in the pain that normal working people are feeling from these actions. And then as his stock price falls, he starts literally almost crying on national TV telling us that why aren't more people feeling sad for me because my stocks are going down. It really is frustrating to see. And what about, you mentioned that you are not a special case. What are some of the other folks in your organization? Like what are some of their stories on a high level? Like, why are they getting involved?
At least in the state, a lot of our members are students. A lot of our members are in their retirements. So things like our First Amendment rights being stomped on, and student protesters across the country just being abducted and disappeared by unmarked officials. That's really scaring people, and so they instead of hiding in their fear, they are taking on courage and standing up. Again, for some of our more senior members, it's because they're directly affected by the threats of cuts to Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. We have a budget resolution that's going through Congress right now that almost guarantees that those programs will have funds slashed for them. And that's gonna affect us.
And that one is a really frustrating. That budget resolution thing is a really frustrating dynamic because right now it's just a budget resolution, and there is no so far actual bill put on the table that would cut Medicaid. And so then, because of that technical reality, people are going on talk radio and saying, oh, nobody wants to cut Medicaid. Medicaid cuts are not on the table. Nobody's even proposed that before. Or nobody's even proposed that this session. But the budget resolution, it calls for something like $800 billion in cuts from the Energy and Commerce Committee, which is in charge of Medicaid. And the only way that you actually get $800 billion in cuts from the Energy and Commerce Committee is if most of that comes from Medicaid. And so there are a lot of people playing,
They're playing dumb.
Exactly. Yeah. They're playing dumb with this sort of stuff.
Yeah. They're just, they're playing semantics. And that is, I don't know, politics.
Right.
As politics. I didn't actually say that. We didn't actually do that. But the reality of it is, I think that's one of the things that that kind of has awoken up in me of like the system, the intent of the system doesn't matter. The intent of the system doesn't matter. The law can say something and they can put it forward to save votes. But if the reality is, if it can be used to oppress, it probably will be used to oppress.
Yeah, I mean, and I know, as president of the North Alabama Area Labor Council, that is the regional federation of unions, we are coming out and supporting this. Like I said, I'm going to be speaking at it. And just from the union perspective, I mean, there's so many things that are going on that are directly attacking union rights. I mean, the National Labor Relations Board, which is responsible for overseeing like union elections and unfair labor practice charges, no longer has a quorum at the national level. Stuff can still go through, but if it's a big case that's controversial and it gets appealed all the way up, then you're not going to be able to get a resolution on that. The Federal Labor Relations Authority, I think, no longer has a quorum, which is the federal sector equivalent. They have taken away the union rights for the majority of federal workers, like 2/3 of the federal workforce. Their union rights completely gone now if Trump is able to get his way. And Pete Hegseth just issued an order barring project labor agreements on Department of Defense construction contracts. And really quickly, what that means is that you are not allowed to go and specifically try to get union labor on Department of Defense construction. And we have had a direct impact right here in Huntsville. The Missile Defense Agency was doing gonna do a big expansion. They had already gotten a project labor agreement. The local building trades unions did. It was going to be 200 to 300 union pay scale jobs from people that live and work here in Huntsville and Madison County. And after that order came down from Pete Hegseth, they ripped up that project labor agreement. They are rebidding the project, even though they already had the contract signed. They were ready to go to work. And now they're going and, talking about government efficiency. They're rebidding this whole thing. And now it's likely going to go to this construction is likely going to go to non-union contractors who will potentially be paying as little as half of what the union construction workers in this community would have been paid. And these people are likely going to be coming from outside of the community, taking what little money they do make and sending it back home. It's just really, really frustrating. Lots of things to be angry about. And just as a final wrap up, you don't even have to be you can be somebody who voted for Trump, who is even generally conservative, and participate in actions like this because there are lots of people that are conservatives that are frustrated with what this administration is doing, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. 5051 is a non-partisan organization. We welcome people from left, center, and right into our organization, so long as you are really fed up with how this administration is affecting your lives. Many of our partners for today's day of action are also nonpartisan. So this is a national movement. This isn't a left-wing radical thing. This is everyday Americans standing up for their rights.
Jeff, local 5051 organizer here in Huntsville, Alabama. The protest is at 2 p.m. in Big Spring Park. See you there. Thank you for coming in.
If you let me give another plug here,
go ahead.
I just want to say that it's not just Huntsville. We've got Florence, Huntsville, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Opelika, Auburn, Mobile, Pensacola. I guess if you're listening from Tennessee, we've got Nashville and Chattanooga. And if you're over in Georgia, you got Atlanta and Columbus. So they are everywhere. There are over 1,000 events today, and most of them start afternoon. So you can go to handsoff.com .org and take a look at what your local events are.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. We've got a local union profile with April from the Laborers International Union of North America. Let's play that.
Hey, y'all. This is Adam Keller here with the Valley Labor Report. And if you've been tuning in for a while, you know we've been trying to spotlight some of the local unions in the area. And you also know we are a big fan of the building trades unions. We think it's really important that workers in construction fields have a union and have union benefits and union protections. So I'm really excited to have April from the Laborers Union on today. April, welcome to the show.
Hey, Adam, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So first of all, let's just start with, what is the Laborers Union? Tell us a little bit about your local and the work that y'all do.
All right. So as a member of the Laborers International Union of North America, also known as LIONA, I'm out of Local 366 in Sheffield, Alabama. We are responsible for a wide variety of tasks. Our members typically perform construction-related work, including concrete placement, site support. Additionally, we provide specialized labor to our nuclear power plants with members that are trained in radiation decontamination and plant maintenance. We also employ landscapers to maintain and enhance site grounds and participate in beautification projects. Labor Local 366 also played a significant role in the construction of the Toyota Mazda plant, providing contractors with skilled laborers in concrete and form building. We also have deckhands responsible for maintaining the TVA waterway system. So as you can see, Adam, laborers typically do a little bit of everything. And that's one of the things I really love about this union is that you get the chance to do something different every day.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. And a lot of folks don't realize that y'all worked on the Toyota Mazda plant, which is, a huge facility here in the Huntsville area, employs a ton of people. That's really, really cool, the amount of work that y'all are doing and the different types of projects y'all are working on. So, April, what brought you to LIONA 366?
Well, as a third generation union member, I've gotten the chance, to see over the years how much being union could benefit me. Starting out, I was a cosmetologist for several years before coming to the laborers local. But when you're younger, you don't think about things like insurance or retirement. But as you get a little time on you, you start to realize pretty quick those things are important. Well, LIONA provides me with those benefits that are built into our overall package. Also, another thing I love about the labor local is that you don't have to have the experience to apply for membership. While experience is valuable, you also have to have the willingness to work and the ability to receive the training that's offered. I've been in for 16 years now, and while most of my background is nuclear, over the years I've had the chance to work on the Toyota Mazda project, a Culver steam plant, and a different nuclear plants, which I think is all added its own experiences into helping me grow as a laborer. But when I first got into the local, I started out as a custodian. I moved into a laborer's position, and I worked my way up to a general foreman. Soon after, I was offered a job steward position, and about 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to apply for an organizer position between Labor Local 366 and DROC, which is District 8 Regional Organizing Committee. And it has definitely been a learning curve going from the field to this position, but my goal is to still keep advancing and go as far as I can in this union. And we encourage that out of our members to do the same thing. Take any kind of training available, not only to better yourself, but to better our organization so that we can continue to grow.
Yeah, that's really, really awesome. I mean, and again, a lot of folks who maybe aren't as familiar with unions and building trades unions don't think about that, about the different pathways to advancement and the ways that you can better yourself and you can receive training. And ultimately, that does strengthen the whole local. It strengthens everybody on the job site. So one of the things that, we really like about the building trades unions is the apprenticeship program, because we know that there are all sorts of options for people after high school, right? People can go to
Right.
college, whether it's university or community college, and there are all sorts of technical schools and trade schools and various apprenticeship programs out there, a lot of which, charge tuition and things like that, or have stringent requirements. And so, we are a big fan of the building trades apprenticeship programs because we think they're a really good opportunity for a lot of people who maybe want to work with their hands or aren't interested in college necessarily, but want to keep bettering themselves and keep learning and learn a trade and really have a great career. So, April, tell us a little bit about the apprenticeship program with the laborers.
Okay, so the apprenticeship program is a wonderful opportunity for those seeking to gain knowledge and to develop their skills. It's estimated it takes around 2 years to complete, which really isn't a long time compared to some of the 5-year apprenticeships or 4-year college courses. Our program is comprised of classroom work and on-the-job training, so it's an earn while you learn kind of deal. In those 2 years, you receive not only the necessities, but a skill set to make you a well-rounded laborer. Some of those core construction specialties of laborers are building heavy highway, masonry, demolition, pipeline, utility, and landscaping. Recently, Adam, you and I worked together to give a presentation at a local high school, educating the students about unions and the importance and benefits of being in a union. And a key point in that presentation was the apprenticeship program. One thing that we're really focused on is educating the future workforce about the opportunities that LIONA has in store. We actively participate in career fairs and engage with school administrations as well as other organizations like the North Alabama Area Labor Council, looking for the chance to present those presentations that really breaks down who we are as a union and really showcase the laborers.
Yeah, absolutely. Proud to work with you on that, and we're proud to have y'all in the Labor Council, and really appreciate the outreach that y'all do with young people and trying to, attend these career fairs and speak to high school students and really just get the message out there and let young folks know about these opportunities, because there are just so many people who are leaving high school who don't necessarily know what they want to do. They haven't quite figured out where they fit in and what a career would, could look like for them. And so it's really great y'all do that. And, I wanted to transition next to ask, the big question that a lot of people will be wondering if they're interested, which is, what is the compensation like?
Regarding our compensation, our scales vary depending on the contractor. However, all members have access to health care coverage, including dental and vision benefits. We also offer built-in pension with scales ranging from 3224 at construction scale, and it goes up to 4119 for a TBA scale.
And the pension, that is so important. Well, you mentioned this earlier, that when you're first starting out in the workforce, a lot of times you don't think about that as much when you're younger, but having a guaranteed retirement, having that defined benefit pension that's there for you when you are ready to retire or have to retire, right? Because a lot of folks end up retiring for, not necessarily when they want to, but because, their body or their mind or whatever the situation may be, or family. And so having that guaranteed retirement is such a crucial benefit. And that is just one of the key differences in working in a union environment in this field, because, non-union folks in the construction industry and non-union folks in most every job these days do not have a retirement pension. So that is a huge benefit. Glad you highlighted that. And, another big benefit of unions on the job site, especially in this industry you're talking about, is safety. So could you talk a little bit about, the importance of safety on a union job site?
Yes, absolutely. Ensuring the safety of our workers is definitely a core value for us. We prioritize creating a safe work environment where members feel secure and can return home safely. We only work with contractors that have demonstrated successful safety records. All of our members are required to obtain OSHA 10 certifications and are assured they can raise a concern without fear of retaliation about safety issues on the job.
Yeah, and I think something that I've noticed when I talk to folks is that there just really is a key difference. You know, folks who work in union job sites, and then if they go from a union job site to a non-union job site, they're often shocked and surprised at the kind of things that are allowed to go on. And so that just is a huge benefit, especially when you're talking about jobs that can be dangerous, that can involve, heavy equipment, dangerous equipment. You're working with your hands, you're outside in the elements at times. And so it's just really important that folks feel comfortable and folks are able to speak up. If they see something, they should be able to say something. And that is another just union difference. It is a fact that union work sites have less injuries and less fatalities than non-union work sites. And that just, like you said, you want your members to be able to go home safely, safe and sound, and be able to enjoy that time with their family and not have to worry about getting hurt on the job or putting themselves at risk unnecessarily. So that's just a huge benefit. And before we wrap things up, I did want to just hear more about, specifically what are some of the things that y'all's local are working on here in the Tennessee Valley?
So we recently staffed the Browns Ferry outage where we had about 200 laborers on site to assist in the refueling outage. We are involved in maintenance and modification on several TVA sites, as well as projects and site custodial support at the Redstone Arsenal. We're also collaborating with contractors to utilize the apprenticeship program and apprentices for upcoming projects like the water treatment plants and so on. Currently, we are also seeking infrastructure projects in the rapidly growing Huntsville area and throughout our jurisdiction.
Yeah, you're right. The Huntsville area is just booming. It is growing really fast. Huntsville is now the biggest city in the state. I believe Limestone County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state, right next door. So this area is definitely booming. And, we want to see all this new construction that's happening. We want to see that being done with union labor, with safe working conditions, and ensure that the workers who are doing this important work, get to go home safely to their families and earn a good wage, earn a good benefit, to take care of themselves, because ultimately that helps our entire community, right? When working folks are taken care of, those people who are doing these important jobs, they can then go out and take their family out and spend money in the local economy, and it really just grows everybody's economy from the bottom up. And so glad to hear that kind of work. I'm glad to hear what y'all are working on, and definitely wishing y'all much success. So if someone has been listening and they're interested, they would like to find out more about how to become a member or get involved in this industry, what should they do?
You can visit our website at Liona Local 366 to complete an application, or visit our office in Sheffield, Alabama. If you're interested in the apprenticeship program, we can also get you connected with Donna. She's our apprenticeship coordinator. I just want to encourage anyone that wants to better themselves and enhance their skills. If you think this might be a path for you, give it a shot. Once you become a member, take the training opportunities and invest in yourself and your professional development. Training and education programs are the foundation of what help us improve our skills and advance in our careers. We also want all of our members to take pride in their craftsmanship and represent for Liona and Local 366, not only on the job site, but in our communities as well. We also have the Laborers Rising program that works with local community programs where we are able to give back and help those in need while making a positive impact. If you're a member and you would like to sign up for Laborers Rising, you can do so in person at our Sheffield Hall, or check out laborersrising.org to get signed up and receive more information.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope there are folks listening who, if you've ever considered the construction industry, I hope you'll reach out to the laborers. And if you're a member of Liona already, I hope you'll get more involved and get involved in your local, get involved in the union, because it's really important that members are involved. Membership is what it boils down to, the active engagement of our membership And, again, that union difference, when you're a part of a union, it is very much like a family. There is a sisterhood and a brotherhood to it. You look out for one another. You try to uplift your community and give back to the community. It's not all just about, the bottom line. It's about the people. And that's really, really important. So, April, I appreciate you spending some time with us this morning. Was there anything else you wanted to share before we let you go?
I just want to thank you, Adam, for this opportunity to really put the spotlight on us at Labor Local 366. And thank you for you and Jacob and for all that y'all do.
Thank you so much.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
Since 1889, the National Association of Letter Carriers has protected the rights of city carriers as they deliver the mail and offer support for their community. The Alabama State Association of Letter Carriers makes their legislative voices heard when it comes to issues involving the U.S. Postal Service and the working members of the union. The National Association of Letter Carriers has been longtime supporters of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive. This message is sponsored by the Alabama Association of Letter Carriers. To learn more, visit NALC.org. Unite Here is also a supporter of the Valley Labor Report. They are a labor union that represents 300,000 working people across Canada and the United States. Their members work in the hotel, gaming, food service, manufacturing, textile, distribution, laundry, transportation, and airport industries. You can learn more about Unite Here at unitehere.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
That's right, folks. From the mountains of Kentucky to the bayous of Louisiana, broadcasting online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host and fellow agitator Adam Keller is not here today, but he is still spreading the gospel of unionism down in Gunnersville. On the program today, we just heard from April with the Laborers International Union. We also heard from Jeff with Alabama 5051 about a protest happening today at Big Spring Park at 2 p.m. We will also be talking to a UAW supporter at Mercedes in Tuscaloosa, dancing on the political grave of the preacher who opposed the union. All that and more on today's show. If you want to be part of the show, we've got a phone number and the line is open. The phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave a voicemail throughout the week and we might respond to it on the next program. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular at our website, TVLR.fm, but we are also on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts, all at The Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So if you want to become a sustaining donor to the program or make a one-time donation, just a little tip, you can go to tvlr.fm/donate or patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. We've also got a bunch of cool merch for sale at tvlr.fm/store. And finally, if you're a member of a union, then think about getting your local to sponsor the show. You can reach out to us for more details on that. And since Adam is not here, I will add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you are on YouTube, Facebook, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, WGOW, or through your favorite podcast app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out. As most of you know, we are not media professionals, just a few diehard unionists who want to amplify the voices of the working class in the American South. We are hoping that this project can make a difference on that front, and we could not do it without you. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Whether you're a loyal fan or a first-time listener, we appreciate you spending some time with us today. Particularly on YouTube. We have some 50 folks tuning in on YouTube right now, but only 20 people have liked the stream. Go ahead and like the stream if you haven't yet. Appreciate folks in the chat hanging out with us. Quirky Geek Girl says, good morning. Palace Rill says, glad to catch the show at the start. Sam Moore says, labor. Quirky Geek Girl says, are you feeling liberated yet? Not quite. Gus says solidarity from Portland. Dave says I'm late. No worries at all. No worries at all. Blandscape says Sean O'Brien is effectively a scab at this point. I don't know if I would agree necessarily with that. He can be confusing, though. That is for sure. That is for sure. 844-899-TVLR is the phone number. Joe on Facebook says, good morning. Good morning, Joe. Let's jump right into last week in Southern labor. Here is what you workers in the United States South and the American colonies were up to from March 28th to April the 4th. Also, In this roundup, all information on Florida's public sector union elections comes from McKenna Schuler's monthly roundup of Florida union news. You can check it out on her website, caringclassrevolt.substack.com, where you can get more information about Florida labor as well as exclusive details about the union elections that we reference here. In new union campaigns, 24 workers at ProCal Mobility in Jacksonville, Florida, filed a petition to hold a union election with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, IAMAW. 19 workers at Starbucks in Lawrenceville, Georgia, filed a petition to hold a union election with Starbucks Workers United. 13 workers at Hydro Evac in McDonough, Georgia, filed a petition to hold a union election with IUOE Local 926, a union going by the name of Amalgamated Workers Local 298, which is an affiliate of the International Union of Allied Novelty and Production Workers, which is an AFL-CIO affiliate, despite its name sounding very sketchy, is attempting to raid a unit of 86 workers employed by the city of Port St. Lucie, Florida, who are currently represented by the Federation of Public Employees, which is another AFL-CIO affiliate, which is against the rules. I don't know what's going on there. McKenna noted that the raiding union is based in New York and has never represented workers in Florida before. So, very strange situation going on there. 45 firefighters for DeSoto County Fire Rescue in Arcadia, Florida, filed a petition to unionize with the Suncoast Professional Firefighters and Paramedics, IAFF Local 2546, and workers likely pushed by their employer filed a petition to decertify IUOE Local 83697 as the union representing 63 workers at Alutrim, North America, in Lebanon, Kentucky. In election results, 718 workers employed by the Manatee County School District in Bradenton, Florida, voted 224 to 11 in favor of recertifying the Manatee Education Association. 5 workers at Atlantis Healthcare Group in St. Just, Puerto Rico, voted 2 to 3 against unionization with SEIU Local 1199. However, 3 workers for the same company in another Puerto Rican city, Fajardo, voted 2 to 0 in favor of unionization with the same union. 93 workers at Dodge Core Aluminum in Chaves, Kentucky, voted 30 to 59 against unionization with the United Steelworkers, USW, and 92 workers employed by the University of West Florida in Pensacola voted 13 to 2 in favor of unionizing with the Independent Association of Public and Private Employees, IAPPE. 24 workers at Starbucks in Katy, Texas, voted 10 to 10 in a union election with Starbucks Workers United. Ties go to the employer. 493 workers employed by the Jackson County School District in Marianna, Florida, voted 197 to 12 in favor of recertifying the Jackson County Education Association, and 19 workers at the American Red Cross in Tulsa, Oklahoma, unionized with the United Food and Commercial Workers, UFCW Local 1000. In grievances, unfair labor practices, and court cases, as you will remember, the Trump administration issued an executive order purporting to take away union rights for most federal workers. On April 4th, several unions filed a lawsuit against the order, alleging that the order is illegal for 2 reasons. For one, because it is in retaliation for First Amendment protected speech, and that the order overbroadly applies the national security exemption in the Civil Service Reform Act. Also, the Maryland father who was kidnapped by ICE and taken to the El Salvador prison camp turned out to be a union member, a first-year apprentice of the Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers Union, SMART. The union put out a statement calling on the government to have him returned, and they have supported rallies to demonstrate their support for his return. It is worth noting that SMART is not a left-wing union. They are a standard, more conservative building trades union, so for them to come out as strongly as they have is politically interesting. The International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, IUPAT, also put out a statement condemning his abduction and the broader actions by ICE. So far, at least 6 of the people abducted have been union members. Strikes and bargaining updates, workers at Starbucks won a core bargaining demand, the ability to pause mobile orders when it gets busy. Another win for the Starbucks union. Layoffs continue to be rolled out in the federal government. Last week, 900 workers for the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, were laid off In response to these firings, the AFL-CIO said, NIOSH is a highly skilled and efficient agency that delivers critical health and safety expertise for both workers and employers, protecting workers in some of the most dangerous industries like coal mining, firefighting, construction, and healthcare, and is responsible for providing medical monitoring and services to 9/11 responders and survivors. Firing the NIOSH workforce sets up a domino effect of serious and dangerous consequences. The government will no longer research emerging health hazards and methods to prevent mine explosions or certify the safety of respirators and other critical personal protective equipment. This action is a gift to corporations. Manufacturing workers at GE Aerospace, unionized with IUE-CWA, held a nationwide day of action last week, including Local 83701 in Madisonville, Kentucky, as they bargained for a contract with increased wages, retirement security, an end to offshoring, and more. CWA members at AT&T Southwest have voted to authorize a strike if necessary and have been demonstrated their support for the bargaining team on the job. Flight attendants at PSA Airlines, unionized with the Association of Flight Attendants, AFA-CWA, held pickets nationwide to demand a fair contract. They've been bargaining for 2 years and recently voted 99% to authorize a strike. Video game workers at ZeniMax Studios voted by 94% to authorize a strike if the company continues to stall at the bargaining table. Workers there are unionized with ZeniMax Workers United, CWA. And in political and legislative updates, bipartisan legislation has been introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives to overturn Trump's executive order ending federal worker union rights, to applause from the AFL-CIO and federal unions. Workers across the country are hitting the streets in their cities on Saturday, April 5th, to protest the actions of the Trump administration, with many major unions endorsing the day of action, including the nation's trade federation, the AFL-CIO. Tariffs hit the world in a big way last week. Unions, historically supportive of tariffs, have been hesitant to full-throatedly endorse these actions due to their slapdash nature. The UAW has been more unreserved in their support, but the AFL-CIO noted in their statement that while the strategic use of tariffs can be an effective tool to support our industries and protect jobs at home, they must be accompanied by policies that invest in our manufacturing base and a strong commitment to promoting workers' fundamental right to organize trade unions and bargain collectively. The United Mine Workers of America, UMWA, is raising the alarm about actions that the Trump administration is doing that could hurt coal miners, including the defunding of NIOSH. Alabama's governor signed a bill into law last week that will give state employees and teachers paid parental leave for mothers 8 weeks and fathers 2 weeks after childbirth, adoption, stillbirth, or miscarriage. 200 workers at GE in Louisville, Kentucky, and members of IUE-CWA Local 83761 received notices this week that they have been targeted for deportation by the Trump administration and must leave the country by April 24th. Their union said in a statement, "These workers came to this country legally and are hardworking, tax-paying members of our community, raising their families and living their lives peacefully. They come to work every day at GE to build appliances for the American people. They deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Blaming immigrants is an age-old trick to create fear and distract us from the takeover of our economy by billionaires." The union also called on the administration to restore their status immediately. The Kentucky AFL-CIO also put out a statement supporting the affected migrants. Legislation has been introduced to defund PBS and NPR. Public media workers who are organized with the National Association of Broadcast Employees and Technicians, NABET-CWA, protested these proposals last week. There is more in the roundup, but you'll have to subscribe to the newsletter to get it, tvlr.fm. If we missed anything, let us know at tvlr.fm/contact. And we will go now to our guest, Jeremy Kimbrell. Jeremy Kimbrell is an organizer in support of the Mercedes UAW election last week. Still, obviously, a UAW supporter. Been on the show before. Welcome back, Jeremy. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Glad to have you. We want to talk to you about the Tuscaloosa City Council race last week. That's kind of the big hook, but obviously there's a lot of other news going on in the world, so we're going to bury the lead a little bit, and we'll get to that here in a moment. Let's start with the bigger picture. Generally, things are crazy right now, and the world is in a state of flux, right? Tariffs, there's been a shift in posture towards electric vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. How is this affecting Mercedes in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, so the EV is kind of flopped. There's plans to move the production of that to other facilities because it's not really catching on enough to warrant production at the Vance plant. Also, our company, I guess, thinking that EVs was the future, they made a deal with China to allow them to build their own vehicle. So the Vance plant will be losing that production. I don't know if that's later this year or first of next year. So there's a lot of decisions, they're going to have to make there in the short term. With the EVs having the trouble, the combustion engine demand has picked up. So there is some increase in production at the Mercedes plant, but ultimately it's to be determined what the end result is.
Right. Didn't you mention something about, is there some of the production potentially going to be moving to China, or am I misremembering?
Oh, no. So all I can think is that the company thought that the EV would fill the void of capacity at the plant. And so they worked a deal out with China to give them their own style of car, China made for China. I think China accounts for over 30% of the production at the Vance facility. So that, though we still will be able to sell our cars in China, the belief is that they'll buy the cars made in China for them. So that's a production loss, pretty significant.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Well, wishing y'all the best, obviously, down at the Mercedes plant in Tuscaloosa, and hoping that y'all are able to weather the storm. The UAW had an election at Mercedes in Tuscaloosa almost a year ago now. During the election, managers were, waving a bunch of carrots in y'all's faces, saying, oh, look, just give us a chance, right? We didn't know you were sad. We want to make it better for you. And so how much of those promises that well, let's start with what were the promises? What were the things that managers were waving in your face, saying like, oh, if you don't unionize, we'll do this and that and the other thing. What were those carrots, and how much of that has materialized?
Yeah, so some of the big ones were, they would let them choose what type shift to work. We had a 3-shift operation out there for years, and they brought in these 10-hour shifts. I call it dynamic shifts, where you, when you do work, you work 10 hours a day, then or more, and then you have a couple days off during the week, and every few weeks it'll roll around and you'll have a long weekend, almost makes it like a holiday. So anyway, a lot of people had issues with that, and they told them they'd let them choose which shift they wanted. They also, threw out promises of more money, better benefits, those kind of things. And, the most significant thing that for me was that they promised to listen. During the campaign, there were so many bosses on the floor, workers couldn't even do their job for tripping over them. Of course, when the campaign ended, that continued for maybe a month. And then those shifts that they got to choose, they never took effect. They ended up putting them on the shift that they wanted them to have, according to production demand. The managers don't come to the lines anymore. They did give the workers did get raises. The benefits didn't improve. They didn't increase the cost, which was definitely, good, because it usually goes up in some way every year. But overall, if you poll the workforce and ask if things improved, you'll get somewhere between no, not at all, gotten worse. And on the best end, you may get, yeah, they've improved, but not in the way that the management promised they would.
And How do you feel as far as what does that do for the potential of another campaign? Like is it what is the potential for another campaign at Mercedes? How are you feeling about that?
Well, there's no question there's going to be another campaign. You don't come 44% yes votes and then just say, well, that's it, and you go away. There's no doubt in anybody that knows anything's mind that we had overwhelming support at a point. But once the company, replaces the CEO, brings in the union busters, and makes all these promises, and the rallying cry for the company was give us a chance, and if you don't like it in a year, you can vote again. So, the workers that felt like they were misled or lied to, that are not strong union advocates, but do realize that that's the only alternative you have, are voicing their opinion that when they get to vote again, they're gonna stick to the yes vote this time. So that gives me hope. There is one fact that when you do run a campaign, when you pour your heart and soul into a campaign, and people battle lines are drawn and you choose your side, that does have some impact. So it takes a little while to reorganize the foundation, but once that's in place and the workers are ready, there will be another campaign. And I will be surprised if the yes vote doesn't win when that time comes.
There was another election in Tuscaloosa last week on Tuesday that for most folks is going to feel pretty small, but for the UAW, there was a lot at stake as far as, reputationally and morally and things like that. Can you talk to us about the city council race? And we're going to talk about the city council race and why it was so important, but the race was between Matthew Wilson and Joe Eatman. Remind us who Matthew Wilson is.
Yeah, so my friend Matthew Wilson, he's a small time pastor. Lives in Tuscaloosa. I think he has a congregation kind of in the country south of Tuscaloosa. He's also a District 1 city councilman. And the week before our election, he came on our shop floor during production hours and proceeded to do his best effort to just terrify workers about the union, tell them all kind of things. He was in the same boat with give the new guy a chance. He even tried to take credit for getting the previous CEO to resign. What he said to workers was some of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. Telling them, I'm from the country too, and you may not be getting everything you want, but us poor folks from the country, we need to be grateful for what we have. Keying in on the black workers, in a lot of ways, taking advantage of new hires and trying to intimidate them. Not something you would expect out of a man of God. So that was wrong in the worst kind of way, taking advantage of your power like that. And I was insulted big time. I actually emailed Matthew on the Saturday after he did that, leading into our election, and told him, when it's time for you to be reelected, you can count on me doing all I can to make sure you don't win.
He was really, it was really fascinating, some of the things that he was doing. And like before the election, I remember he did a big 15-minute long local news interview. And for folks who watch local news, 15 minutes is a long time to be on a local TV news. And one of the things, if I'm remembering right, that he said was he considers himself to be walking in the footsteps of Martin Luther King by opposing this union election. And I was just so baffled that that somebody, a black preacher, would be willing to so contort the legacy of MLK when MLK, literally the last thing that he did was supporting a strike by union workers in Memphis. And so the idea that you are literally trying to bust a union and you're going to bring out MLK's name was just such a wild thing for for me to see him do. And so, I'm curious. Obviously, for us, we're a union radio program. You're a UAW supporter at Mercedes in Tuscaloosa, right? We care about this because we want to dance on the political grave of somebody who opposed the union campaign, right? But this is for the people in the community. There were more things at stake. Obviously, this was not just a one issue election. What were his what was he campaigning on, and who is his opponent, and what was he campaigning on?
So just like most incumbents, they campaign on more of the same, and through door knocking and listen to people in the district feedback, he hadn't done anything. So I really don't know what his point was, except from his pastor work. And some people give him credit that, there's definitely a violent crime problem over in that district. And it's like somebody said, we don't see him anything to help with a violent crime, but if somebody happens to be murdered, he's the first one on the scene. So he shows up when the cameras are on. He clearly is, starving for attention. But he really, as far as the residents of the district saw, what had he done? They couldn't think of anything except be on the cameras. Joe Eatman grew up in that district, has since went on and had a career in education, coached basketball at the community college, and now is like dean over outreach. He wants to see that district improve. He wants to see it cleaned up. He wants kids taken care of, and he doesn't starve for the attention that Matthew Wilson is. And another thing is, like Joe says, is, he was kind of brought into some of those same discussions that Matthew was when the local Chamber of Commerce wanted local preachers to come out publicly against the union effort. And in those meetings, Joe said, like me, if it weren't for unions, a lot of the people of the black community would have been working for peanuts forever. So not only will we not speak against the union, we're for the union. We're for workers. We're not for workers just taking the crumbs and being grateful for it. So a clear contrast in principles and the desire to work. Joe Eatman won the campaign because he worked and because he had supporters willing to work for him. And Matthew just stood on the corner with street signs. And, of course, you saw in the video he was captured stomping Joe Eatman's sign to the ground. I just say to Matthew, you're a man of God. Look yourself in the mirror and get yourself right. You got some issues.
Yeah, I think we have, Jeff, don't we have that clip? Let's play that clip for folks to see, because it is just so weird. Let's take a look at this. No, that's not it. I don't, for some reason I don't have it in the queue. I may not have it in the queue. Sorry about that, folks. But yeah, it is just a really strange clip to watch. Typically, I don't know that I've ever followed a local, like a local race that didn't have a yard sign scandal. I mean, it's just such a common feature of local races, but typically what you see is like a volunteer or something taking down a sign. You don't actually see the candidate themselves doing it. And so it's very weird, very, very weird. We do have the clip queued up now. Let's go ahead and play this. So for those of you who are not seeing it, he just kicked it over just now. And so there you go. It's just it's a very, very strange sort of thing. What happened there? I don't know why you would do that exactly, what the point of that is, especially as the candidate themselves. Just a very strange thing to do. And so the UAW came out in force to support his opponent, Joe Eatman. And so what specifically did the UAW do to support Eatman?
Yeah, so primarily, we have a local official UAW at the local ZF plant. So workers from that union came out, knocked on doors. At my workplace, we took up money from workers to donate to the campaign, and you just outwork them. An incumbent is hard to beat at any level, but if you can get on a level playing field where it's who's willing to put the time in and earn the respect of the community and show that they deserve it, then you can beat them. And so the UAW helped in that. They've got a lot of experience at rallying community support. The cause was just. I mean, for somebody, it's like this. I'm pro-union. I'll always vote yes. I believe workers are better any time that they have a contract to sit down and negotiate with their employer and protect themselves. But when you have a union election, that election is between those workers, even of opposing views. And if you're outside, like him, he didn't say, I work at the plant, my wife or spouse or son. I mean, why were you there? Did somebody pay you or offer you a favor? So, and when you have titles, pastor, city council, that's egregious. And you claim to be, representing Jesus. I don't remember Jesus, taking a stand in favor of the Roman emperor. He was for the oppressed, not for the oppressor. And if you listen, even to the people that voted no in that union election, they won't tell you that the bosses at Mercedes love the workers. That I promise you, they won't tell you that. So, at the end of the day, the UAW was on the side of right, standing up for those that needed the help. And it sent a clear message, I think an undeniable message that, when workers do stick together, their cause is righteous, they're a powerful force. So this was on a small scale, but I think if these politicians and business leaders, if they think that this is not able to be replicated, I think they're badly mistaken.
Yeah. Are there any other messages that you think that politicians or other folks should take from this episode?
Yeah, look at your constituency. The big business leaders and the uber millionaires of the world, they got the money and the power. But your constituency, who are mostly lower middle class or the working poor, man, well, they make the numbers. Look out for the people that live in your districts. Have their best interests at heart instead of these big businesses that don't deserve it. You look out for them, and you'll never lose an election. But it's easy to tell when you're on the side of the company and the person that's mistreating the little guy. If anything, people this day and age should observe and be honest about is that people are pretty pissed off in the middle class and the lower middle class and the working poor of how they've been disrespected and talked down to by people in charge. So, take that for granted at your own peril.
Jeremy Kimbrell, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, folks. We're going to go to a break here in a second and wrap up the first half of the program. We do have a couple of folks who are trolling in the chat. Jay Bake saying some very funny things, and he's welcome to call in, 844-899-TVLR, 844-899-8857. Would love to have some anti-union folks call in. Would love to talk to them about why exactly they think the way that they do. And you're welcome to do that, but you've said what you wanted in the chat, and if you continue to just, say strange things, and not be a productive interlocutor, we're going to go ahead and put you in timeout. So there you go. There's the option, 844-899-TVLR, if you want to make more anti-union points. Otherwise, shut up. Going to go into a break. We'll be right back with Boss Watch.
The Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama local workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact April at our training center to start the process at 256-904-1753. No experience is needed. We offer free training, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is our mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by the Communication Workers of America. Learn more at cwa-union.org.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by the United Automobile, Aerospace, and Agricultural Implement Workers of America, better known as the UAW. They are one of the largest and most diverse unions in North America, with members in virtually every sector of the economy. UAW-represented workplaces range from multinational corporations, small manufacturers, and state and local governments, to colleges and universities, hospitals, and private nonprofit organizations. The UAW has more than 400,000 active members and more than 580,000 retired members in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. You can learn more about the UAW and join at uaw.org. The Valley Labor Report is also sponsored by Labor Notes. Labor Notes is a media and organizing project that has been the voice of union activists who want to put the movement back in the labor movement since 1979. You can learn more about Labor Notes at labornotes.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
Union leaders, do you want a powerful website and mobile app built just for your members? The Union Active system, created by Unions America, makes it easy to share news and documents, send alerts, and keep your members engaged anytime, anywhere. Trusted by thousands of unions, Union Active streamlines communication so you can focus on what matters most, your members. With real-time updates, secure messaging, and custom features built for unions, you'll keep your members informed and engaged 24/7. Get Union Active today. Visit unionactive.com to learn more. Union Active, the ultimate website and communication system for unions.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth. All wealth should go to labor. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host, Adam Keller, is out of the office today, spreading the gospel of unionism in Gunnersville, Alabama. We had a voicemail left last week. You can leave a voicemail, too, at any time throughout the week at 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also call in right now. You could call in right now if you wanted, 844-899-TVLR. But you can also leave a voicemail at any time throughout the week. Here's a voicemail that we were left last week.
Hello, my name is Camille Bennett. I'm with Project Say Something, and Adam Keller asked me to leave a message about SB 247. That is a bill that is moving through the Senate committee today. Today is April 2nd, and the bill is an anti-protest bill. It can be found on the Alabama legislature with all of the bill information, but it prohibits noise amplification near a resident, attempts to control when we protest, criminalizes protests in front of businesses, and it limits protests to any public park or similar traditional public forum. It's a bad bill. It's an anti-protest bill.
Yeah, now this is one that we haven't been tracking super closely, but definitely encourage folks to do that, to check it out, and let your lawmakers know what you think about it. We interviewed the state representative who put this bill forward this year. We interviewed him last year or 2 years ago because he put out a similar one that was very bad. It was, let's see, here it is, the title. 3 years ago, anti-riot sponsor defends the bill in interview, State Representative Alan Treadaway. That was super crazy. That was a bizarre interview. We spoke to him for an hour long. But that bill, I don't know if the one this year does the same thing, but that bill would have put somebody in jail for 6 months for spitting in the direction of a cop. It was something crazy like that. It's been 3 years ago. I don't know. You watch the video, but check it out. And this one seems bad to me. Seems bad. It's another one that's like limiting the rights of people to protest. And I think in Alabama, our rights to protest, our rights to picket are already constricted enough. So those are my thoughts on that. Appreciate the call. Appreciate the voicemail. If you want to leave a voicemail, 844-899-TVLR is the number. We do have a caller on the line. This caller is coming from an 859 area code. 859 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Doug. I called last week about the post office union, but I was wanting to. I'm sorry. I'm from Winchester, and I'm just calling in. Going to try to play devil's advocate about the person in the chat room.
Yeah, Doug from Winchester. What you got?
So I don't believe this at all. I have a feeling that this might be the reason for the trolling or whatever. But what is your take on this particular situation where if you're in a union or if you get a job that's union based, everyone is exactly the same. You know exactly what you're getting into when you go into the union as far as wages are concerned. When you get the job as a non-union member, you can negotiate your pay. You can go in and say, this is what I'm worth. This is my merit. I'm based on my merit, based on what I've done. This is what I'm worth. You can take it or leave it. This is what we're negotiating on. But in a union, can't do that. You see all of it up front. You see exactly what you get. Is there something better to that as being in the union? Like I said, right. I believe that union is. I would rather know up front what I'm getting versus somebody coming in and saying that or negotiating an amount, not knowing whatever anybody else gets, and then suddenly the boss changes that and says, oh, well, we don't have enough money anymore. Sorry, we're not going to give you any more if, you want to go in and try to get a raise or whatever. I guess, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Doug, appreciate it. I'll take the answer. I'll let you go, and I'll go ahead and give the answer, and then we got to get to our last segment of the day. But appreciate you filling in for this guy in the comment, Jay Bake, who the guy in the in the chat who was talking a big game about standing up for yourself and all of that kind of stuff, and he's got to have a union member call in just to play devil's advocate on his behalf. I think that's pretty embarrassing for him. But the question was about, what is the value in bargaining collectively and getting a 3-year contract versus year-to-year individually negotiating yourself? And there are several answers that I would have to that. The first is, if you want to talk about standing up for yourself and doing something without, there's a question that you should ask yourself. What is the thing that your boss would rather you do, right? Would your boss rather you organize with your coworkers and bargain collectively, or would your boss rather each one of you individually slink into their office and say, pretty please, will you give me a little bit more money? Well, the answer is obviously the latter, right? Your boss would obviously rather negotiate with you individually rather than collectively. We know that because bosses always oppose union campaigns. And so if that's the case, then bosses always oppose union campaigns. Bosses prefer you bargain individually rather than collectively. The question that should come from that, especially if you come from a sort of idea about, well, I would prefer to negotiate individually because I could get more, right? Well, you should ask yourself, why does the boss want me to negotiate individually rather than collectively? And the answer is because you can get less when you bargain individually than you bargain collectively. And we can take a look at data for this, right? All we have to do is just look at the data. Union members make more money than non-union members. It's like 14% more every year. Union members make 14% more every year when you account for things like experience, education, etc., etc. Union members make 14% more on average when you account for all of those things, when you account for occupation. And so, obviously, you make more money when you bargain collectively, because when you bargain individually, all you have is your individual worth to the company to leverage against the company. That's all you have, right? And no matter how individually valuable you are to a company, you can always be replaced. And you can always be replaced, typically very quickly, right? It's typically a pretty quick process. And if you bargain collectively, what is the thing that you're implicitly leveraging? Well, the thing that you're implicitly leveraging is that maybe we all go on strike and the whole company shuts down for a couple of weeks or for a couple of months, right? And well, they can't replace all of you that quickly. You are all together worth much more to the company than the sum of your parts. And so that is why bosses oppose union elections. That is why workers in unions make more money. That is why workers in unions are safer. Workers on union construction sites are 30% less likely to die at work because we have safety standards written into our contract, enforceable by workers. Union members are more likely to have retirement benefits. Union members are more likely to have health care benefits because we are more powerful together than we are just the sum of our parts. And so that's why you just simply will not get as much money if you don't bargain collectively. And people and people at the top of the merit, sort of the idea of like a merit-based system, the people at the top of like a quote-unquote merit-based system are going to be professional athletes, right? I mean, you do not get to where LeBron James is without being the best of the best, right? And yet LeBron James is a member of a union. Every single professional athlete is a member of a union. Why? Because even though they are literally the best in the world at what they do, they can still get a little bit more if they bargain collectively. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to make the exact same amount of money. Obviously, LeBron James makes more money than a backbencher, right? And their union contract allows for that. But it also allows them collectively to pull down more of the money that they create for the NBA. That otherwise the owners of the NBA would be collecting just because they have a bunch of money, right? So that's the dynamic there. If the guy in the chat would like to call in, he can. 844-899-TVLR. We'll take more comments in the second half of the program. Let's get to Boss Watch. Boss Watch is a segment that we do every single week where we take a look at what bosses are up to, particularly in the southern United States. In North Carolina last week, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is inviting male job applicants who were not hired by Kickback Jack's restaurants in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia to contact the federal agency for possible inclusion in a sex discrimination case, the federal agency announced last week. On September 25th, 2024, the EEOC filed a lawsuit in federal court in Greensboro, North Carolina, against Battleground Restaurants and Battleground Restaurant Groups doing business as Kickback Jacks for failing or refusing to hire male applicants who applied to non-managerial front-of-house positions, including server, bartender, and host positions, since December 2019. These alleged employment practices violate federal civil rights laws. Male applicants who sought employment as a server, host, and or bartender with any of the defendants' Kickback Jacks restaurants in North Carolina, Tennessee, or Virginia, but were not hired or who were hired into a different position may be claimants in this lawsuit and are encouraged to contact the EEOC at the phone number or email address on their website. Now, this is interesting for a few things. For a few reasons. For one, I've read a lot of these EEOC press releases, and they usually have a specific behavior related to at least one individual, even if they use it as an illustration of what is happening to a broader class of folks. This doesn't seem to be the case here. I don't see any, any specific action that is alleged, so that's interesting. And secondly, I also wondered if this is a sort of Hooters knockoff, and so I Googled them, and I can't tell for sure. I did find a couple of stat pictures where it definitely looks like all the servers are women, but they were not like scantily clad in the same way that Hooters is. So if anybody is in North Carolina or Tennessee or Virginia, I'd be interested in hearing if this place does like try to be a Hooters knockoff, in which case I wonder if the position of the EEOC now is that the Hooters business model is illegal because it discriminates against men, potentially. I'm not sure. It's an interesting case that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on. There's another case out of Georgia where CPG Staffing and Executive Personnel Group are paying $60,000 to settle a disability discrimination suit. Those companies assign employees to construction industry clients, and they agreed to pay $60,000 and furnish other relief to settle a disability discrimination lawsuit. What was alleged is that the companies rescinded a welding applicant's job offer after learning from a post-offer medical questionnaire that he had injured his knee on a job 2 years earlier. Before disclosing the prior injury, from which he had completely recovered, the applicant successfully passed a welding test. The welding test involved climbing ladders and crouching and crawling on beams. The applicant indicated he could perform the essential duties of the welder job, did not require a reasonable accommodation, and provided a letter from his physician clearing him to work. Yet, the company's risk manager instructed the company not to hire the applicant because of his prior injury. CPG Staffing, in turn, rescinded the applicant's job offer. That conduct violates the Americans with Disabilities Act, and so the EEOC filed a lawsuit. In addition to the $60,000 in monetary relief, the 2-year decree requires the companies to provide their employees with specialized training on the ADA's prohibition against disability discrimination and more. And finally, Union Busters. This segment of Boss Watch, Union Busters covering national updates, is sponsored by Labor Lab. Labor Lab is an employer watchdog organization. They are committed to safeguarding the right to organize through unions, collective bargaining, and mutual aid. They do this by combing through reports that Union Busters are required to file with the Department of Labor. These are last week's most recent filings. Amazon hired Pantera Consulting without providing their compensation. Marlene's Natural Foods and Deli in Washington hired Davis, Grimm, Payne, and Mara for $400 an hour. Workers still won their union election 40-0. Amazon in Nevada hired MCM Labor Advisors. Western Montana Mental Health Center in Montana hired LRI Consulting Services for $425 an hour. There is an active union election. Amazon in Illinois hired Progressive Labor Solutions. That filing is for work done in 2024. They did not report their hourly rate, but they did file their 2024 LM21 and reported making $42,000 from Amazon. In addition, the following filings were amended. Tyndall Consulting amended their filing for Amazon DAX5 to add their compensation of $2,000 a day, and Greer Consulting amended their filing for Blick Art Supplies to add their compensation of $1,500 a day. Workers lost that union election. That is it for the first half of our program. You can find us online on Facebook and YouTube to continue listening to the second half of the show at the Valley Labor Report. We are going to be talking about project labor agreements. We have a guest from the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. Really excited for that conversation. Also talking about tariffs and more. So find us online, Facebook and YouTube. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Alrighty, folks. Appreciate everybody staying tuned. Appreciate it. We're now off of the radio. The second half of the program is aired on a couple of radio stations, but it is not aired live. So we are no longer live on the radio anymore. Appreciate everybody for staying tuned. We're going to take a break really quick, and we'll be right back with Overtime.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Welcome back. You are still listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. Appreciate everybody tuning in. This is Overtime, a production of the Valley Labor Report, the largest union talk radio and online news outfit in the South, coming to you from the heart of the Tennessee Valley in the Spice Radio Studios in Huntsville, Alabama. We are run by working people and for working people in the South and all over the country. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. We appreciate you spending some time with us. The phone number is 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857 if you would like to call in. We do have a caller on the line. Calling from an anonymous number. We'll go ahead and bring them on the air. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, anonymous.
What's on your mind?
All righty. So what do you think of the Trump tariff?
Yeah, I've got a whole thing lined up for that later in the program. I've got a couple of clips. I've got a couple of clips about that.
Love it or hate it?
Neither. I neither love it nor hate it.
Interesting. Well, do you recall seeing a lot of clips? In particular, Asmongold made a YouTube video on it, and it's about back in the 90s where all the Democrats are saying the same things that Trump's saying today. But now today, they're not.
Yeah,
so
no, for sure. I mean, it just
exposes Democrats like you.
Well, I mean, I don't think it does expose me. I mean, what unions have been saying, which I'm a union member first and foremost. What unions have been saying, unions have been kind of moderately, like cautiously supportive, and because I've got a whole thing about it later on in the program, but I'll just quickly say that tariffs are good and can be used well. I am concerned about multiple things. I am concerned that Democrats are going to negatively polarize themselves into not supporting tariffs at all because Trump did tariffs and therefore tariffs bad. That is a genuine concern of mine because, like people have pointed out on Twitter, there have been lots of Democrats who have been supportive of tariffs in the past and who have been supportive of things like that. And so I am really concerned that we are going to see a dynamic where they get negatively polarized into opposing a good version of tariffs down the road because Trump did potentially a worse version of tariffs. That is going to, I'm very concerned that we are going to see a reversion to the status quo of like 2014, where Democrats were going around and touting TPP and being the free trade party, when after 2016, we had something of a bipartisan consensus that free trade has been destructive for America's working class. And so I am really concerned that there's going to be a negative polarization there. I am also concerned that Republicans, that rank and file Republicans, are going to get confused about what the problem is with free trade, because the Trump rhetoric around the tariffs has been around other countries putting tariffs on us. And that's what's problematic about free trade or whatever. That's the thing that's actually killing us. And that is not at all the major problem. The major problem is not that other countries have a 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or even 100% tariff on American manufacturing. The problem is that there are countries across the world who have basically slave labor, and American workers cannot compete with that on a dollar-for-dollar basis. And so, that's the problem. The problem is not that Mexico puts whatever tariff on us. The problem is that Mexican auto workers are exploited and don't make enough freaking money, right? And so even if you remove all of the tariffs from everybody, that is going to be just as bad as NAFTA, because American workers are not going to be able to work for $2 a day, right? And so that's the problem. And I'm concerned that we're going to have a situation where rank and file Republicans see maybe tariffs come off of American products going into other markets, and then they think the problem is solved. And then Democrats are all free trade, and then Republicans feel like the problem is solved, and we're back at NAFTA. And so I'm super concerned about just like I'm so concerned. What do you make of that? I don't know if did you hung up? He may have hung up. Sorry. I kind of went on for a little bit. I didn't mean for you to hang up. But yeah, so there you go. Those are my thoughts, quick thoughts on tariffs. And we're going to talk some more about it later. Let's talk about we got him back in the queue. I think maybe he just accidentally dropped. Maybe he went through a bad area or something. Hey, can you hear me? You're back on the air now. Hello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not hearing him. Okay. All right. Not sure what's going on there. Sorry about that. But yeah, as you can tell, very concerned. And no, I'm not like huge, not a huge fan of the tariffs, because I think they are pointing at like not the real problem. But on the negative polarization of Democrats, I'm concerned that we're going to get a situation where, we're seeing a lot of people point at the stock market, and like it's most people don't own stocks, right? Like, I'm not freaking out that the stock market has lost 10%, right? And if you actually do pass, and this tariff policy is not, the whole thing, right? The tariff policy is not the whole thing that I would want. But if you did pass genuinely pro-worker policy, if you passed Medicare for all, if you passed something like a real fair trade bill that included improved working conditions for workers in places where we import products from, the stock market is going to fall probably by even more than this. And so I'm concerned that we are foreclosing the possibility of genuinely challenging Wall Street, because Democrats have wedded themselves to like, oh, it's bad when the line goes down. And like, it's mostly, it's not good for working people when the line goes down, but that's like not the, that's not like the primary thing. And to the extent that working people are even connected at all to the stock market, it is only through our 401ks, which were a total scam to begin with. We used to have pensions in this country, a defined benefit. And so we were not connected to the stock market, right? We had a deal with our employers. We said, look, I'll work for you. I will sacrifice 20, 30, 40 years of my life for you. And you're going to give me, $1,000, $2,000 a month or something. And that was the deal. And now the deal is I sacrifice 20, 30, 40 years of my life to you, and we're both going to push money into the stock market and hope that things work out. That's a scam. It's bad. All right, we got him back on the line one more time. Let's go ahead and put him on the air. But if some, this will be the last time we try. I'm not sure if I don't think it's our system, because it was just working. So we got you back on the air, Anonymous. Can you hear me? I don't know, Ben, or is it on our
end? Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Oh, you can now. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think it was on your end. Who cares?
Okay.
All right. So Trump is trying to crash the stock. This is what I'm thinking and seeing with the Trump's tariffs. Trump is trying to crash the stock market at least 20%, causing a flight into treasuries. This will cause the Fed to slash interest rates so he can refinance the debt to a near 0% and cause a deflationary spiral, which will lower the cost of everything. He also intends to use tariffs as an initiative for companies to build in the U.S. to avoid having to pay them. The tariffs and the resulting global trade war will also force American farmers to sell more of their goods in the U.S. Due to the retaliatory trade measures by other countries, which will directly lower the price of groceries in the U.S. More than 94% of all stock is owned just by 8% of the U.S. population. Trump is literally taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. This is why Trump is playing a game of hokey pokey with tariffs. One day he has a 25% tariff on Mexico, and the next day he doesn't. This is to cause extreme volatility in the markets and a desperate need and demand to flee towards Treasury bonds, which are more stable but offer lower potential return. This is also why eggs are cheaper now than they were under Joe Biden. And that is my reply to the Trump tariffs and what you were saying.
Okay. Yeah. A very, very similar thing about the as far as the stock market. Yeah, I mentioned that. I don't know if you heard me there, but I mentioned that most of the stock market is held by the rich, and so I'm not super concerned about the line going down. I don't know that I buy the rest of the plan, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So appreciate the call.
Yep. Alrighty.
All right. Thanks. Have we got our guest on the Zoom? Fantastic. So, as y'all know, something like, or maybe you don't know, something like 2/3 of federal employees at the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health have been fired. The department used to have 1,200 workers. Approximately 900 of them were fired just last week. This is going to be a huge blow to working people across the country, and obviously a huge blow to the affected workers. To talk about that, we have Kathy Tinizara, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 3430 at the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health in West Virginia, and Anita Wolf, a retiree from NIOSH, who are both here in their personal capacity and not representing their agency. Kathy and Anita, welcome to the program. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you very much.
I really do appreciate it. It was kind of short notice. Had somebody wanting to reach out to you, and so I said, "Well, I had a guest. I had a guest that wasn't able to make it last minute, so I need a guest, and I've been wanting to talk about this anyway. So I figured, hey, let's get them on the program because this is a really, really important issue. So appreciate y'all being available last minute. They're not on the camera, and so we can just stay on me. And so, Kathy, can you explain to folks, because I haven't even been super familiar with NIOSH. I've heard it. I'm a union member. I read a lot about unions and labor stuff, and so I've heard it before, but I'm not super familiar with it. What is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, and what kind of work do you do?
Well, actually, NIOSH is the only dedicated federal research investment for preventing work-related illnesses and injuries among the nation's more than 170 million workers. And it is distinct from the regulatory function of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, which is actually in the Department of Labor. So NIOSH employs the multidisciplinary staff of 400 people in Morgantown, West Virginia, and it's the second largest of 8 NIOSH locations. We also have sites in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Cincinnati, Ohio, Spokane, Washington, Denver, Colorado, Anchorage, Alaska, and Atlanta, Georgia. The Morgantown facility, which is the one that we represent, houses unique laboratory capabilities. We have inhalation research and engineering research. We provide services to worker. We conduct research that develops new knowledge and transfers research findings to cost-effective solutions that makes work safer, healthier, and more productive for workers, employers, and the nation. For employers, NIOSH assessments and solutions lead to these safer work environments, which can reduce the costs associated with workers' comp and lost productivity. So we're the workers' friends. We go in and we help. We study jobs and workers and work on making them healthier and happier and all the good things that we want our workers to be, hopefully. But it's really just the safety and health of the workers. But we have 4 main divisions in Morgantown. And do you want to hear about them at this point? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we have the Division of Safety Research, which it researches and assesses focus on leading causes of workers' injuries. and such as falls in construction workers. It studies and develops interventions and conducts laboratory research on cutting edge issues such as the human robot interface in the workplace, which, as you know, is the future here and what we may all be dealing with. The Health Effects Laboratory Division, it conducts basic and applied laboratory research in immunology, allergy, and inflammation, particularly relevant to occupational diseases, and establishes new methods to identify and assess occupational exposures to chemical, physical, and biological hazards. And we have the National Personal Protective Technology Laboratory, which supports research and certification of advanced PPE to enhance the safety of our workers. So then lastly, and this is the division that Anita is very, very familiar with, and that's the Respiratory Health Division. And it administers services and conducts multidisciplinary research to identify work-related respiratory hazards, access workplace exposures, characterize health risks, and develop and disseminate effective interventions. So everything that you do on a daily basis, everything that you touch, everything, everywhere you go, a worker somewhere made that. And so we try to make the workplace and the workers safer and healthier. So Anita, if you...
Yeah. That is incredibly important work, obviously. And Anita, she said that you worked in your retiree, worked in the respiratory health division, and so obviously there's a lot of like a lot of work in coal mines and stuff. Has NIOSH been kind of involved in research about silica dust and stuff in the mines?
Yes, it has, and actually, the work that was done by my team when I was still working, and they're actually the only team that is still in the building. It's a team now of 10 that somehow didn't get caught up in the cut. We don't know if that was just an error or if they have been, as I say, saved because it is a mandated program. There are other mandated programs in NIOSH that did get cut. So we're not sure what's going on, but they're trying to keep things going in what is called the Coal Workers Health Surveillance Program. But yes, we found a lot of miners especially in Appalachia are getting very sick, and the rates are a lot higher than they used to be, and we're seeing a lot of disease in very young miners. And what we're told by MSHA is that a lot of the easy coal to mine has been mined, what was easy to get to. So they're going deeper, getting into the thin seam mining. And of course, to get to that, they're cutting through a lot of rock, and the rock has a lot of silica in it. So we suspect that silica is what is causing a lot of this.
And so what you're talking about specifically, you mentioned a rise in diseases. We're talking about black lung. There has been a significant increase in the rate of black lung among coal miners over the last 10 to 15 years. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, Anita. Do you know like what kind of increase? I remember it being significant, but I can't remember if it was significant like 20% or like 100% more. Do you remember how many more cases we are seeing of black lung now compared to when it was at the lowest?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact percentage, but I can tell you that currently today in the Central Appalachian region, that currently 1 in 5 coal miners who have worked for 25 years or more in mining have black lung. 1 in 5. Wow. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
And yeah, and this is happening in miners as young as 39, 40 years old. If you look at if you go on YouTube and search for faces of black lung, there's two videos that we put out. There's Faces of Black Lung 1 and Faces of Black Lung 2. The first one is two miners that are in their 60s. And we just went, visited them. They agreed to talk to us, and we just let the camera roll, and they told us what they did in the mines, what this disease has done to them. And the first gentleman in that video died before we even got the video produced. The second gentleman had a double lung transplant, but he died 4 months later. So both of those guys are gone. They were like 62. So then in Faces of Black Lung 2, we thought we needed to focus more on the younger miners. So we have 3 miners in there. One, I think they're 39, 40, and 42. And the first miner in there, the youngest one passed away, like I said, before the video was completed. The other 2 miners have both had lung transplants, and the last guy that talks in that video, which is very hard for him to even put 2 words together without having to stop and, heave for breath, had a double lung heart transplant, and he is doing very well right now. I talked to his doctor actually yesterday and said he's able to get out and walk around a little bit now and doing well, but now he's like 43 years old. That's just way, way, way too young.
So Kim Kelly is a friend of the show. I don't know if because she's been reporting pretty closely on the black lung stuff, and she wrote a big article for In These Times about it that I remember reading, and so I just looked it up. And this was written 2 years ago, which is crazy.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, she was saying that in Kentucky and West Virginia, black lung afflicts more than 1 in 8 coal miners who have been working underground for 20 to 24 years. And now you're saying that rate is now something more like 1 in 5. She said that a decade ago, back in 2013, the rate was 1 in 30. And so that's the kind of increase that we're talking about. And the work that y'all do was incredibly important in connecting this increase in the incidence of black lung to silica dust as the cause. Am I getting that right?
You're right. Yes. Basically what we do is or what I did and what we do, I was the team lead and the project manager for this project for over 20 years. And the program started out as part of the Coal Mine Safety and Health Act, signed into law by President Nixon. And that part of the program, we certify facilities all over the United States that do the x-rays for us. And we make sure they're good facilities. Then they send those x-rays to us to be processed. And those are looked at then by our statisticians, epidemiologists to, come up with the trends in mining and the ages of miners, what occupations are most, are most susceptible to getting black lung. Then in 2005, we were given enough money to procure our own mobile vehicle. And we took that around to areas that were kind of underserved by clinics or areas where we were seeing really high rates of disease, and sometimes right on the mine site. A lot of the mine operators welcome us and say, yes, we would love for you to come and set up, and others don't. Others say you're not bringing that truck on mine property. So when we got the mobile, it kind of doubled what we were able to look at because we, in addition to the clinics, we had a whole nother mobile of our own that we could go out and do the x-rays and all. And then spirometry became a mandated part of the program as well. That came along with the new dust standards that were put into place. So the other thing too is MSHA uses Mine Safety and Health Administration, that is the regulatory agency for mines. They look at our data, and that's what's used to set their laws and regulations for their inspectors. And then now there's the new silica standard. But I know I'm supposed to talk about NIOSH, but MSHA took a pretty big hit too. And I'm just concerned that, along with miners not getting screened themselves, is going to really turn into a catastrophe.
Right. Yes, it's very concerning. The United Mine Workers of America just put out a statement talking about how all of these cuts to NIOSH, to MSHA, and including some of the tariffs, which is going to hurt our ability to export coal, a quarter of the coal that we produce in this country is exported. And so that, there's a lot of potential problems that the coal mining industry, including obviously coal miners themselves, are facing from all of these kind of disparate attacks on, different parts of the government. And so, I want to talk some more about what these cuts are going to do. But before that, I want to learn some more about some of the other work outside of the respiratory health division. Kathy, if you, what are some of the highlights from some of the other divisions at NIOSH that you think would help folks like understand the importance of NIOSH to working people in this country?
Sure. So first of all, let me describe how our different divisions all can fit into the Black Lung program also. So for example, we have a division that's regarded as the best in inhalation toxicology, and they study and research the effects of Black Lung, and they do that by exposing animals, rats and mice, to these dusts. So in our inhalation chambers, they can do this because clearly you don't want to do an experiment on a human and say, come in and have your lungs exposed to these particulates. So we have that part of this whole wrapped up. It's all in one package, so to speak. So the labs in Morgantown, like Anita was talking about RHD, go out and collect all of this information. And then we have the division that works on the inhalation. We have the National Personal Protective Technology Lab that looks at, gloves, helmets, suits, and all this harmonizes together to help protect the worker. And in most cases, industry really values the work we do. We've got a program called the HHE, Health Hazard Evaluation Program, Effects Program, that any employer, or I believe it's 3 workers, if they think they have mold in their work facility, they can call us and we send investigators out to look at the situation. And often, they'll do a report that then gives recommendations on how some of this can be mitigated. And we don't come in with citations. We don't do any of that. We're there to assist the employer and the worker by making the worker more safe. We have the national, the firefighter fatality investigation team. If there's a fatality on a fire scene, we have investigators that go out and investigate that whole issue and all the circumstances. They then have an investigative report that then is published, and hopefully, the other fire departments and such review that, and hopefully you prevent other fatalities. We've got the firefighter cancer research registry that's in our Cincinnati site. Nita, can you think of, there's so many that
right.
It's hard to think and compose them all into,
No, I think that you're doing a great job, Kathy. I just want to make sure that I say that. It seemed like yesterday you were kind of nervous. I think you were doing a fantastic job, and I think that you're really communicating well. The value of this organization to working people, and I think also implicitly, right? I think that most people can kind of intuit that this is not this is incredibly socially valuable work to the community and to workers, but it is also work that is probably not going to be funded in the private industry, right? I mean, this kind of work is something that like you said, some employers, they want to know, and they want to, because there is genuinely a business case to making a safe workplace, but there are also a lot of employers that want to kind of sweep stuff under the rug and don't want to know what they're doing may be killing people. They would rather just not have to deal with it. And so this is the kind of stuff that is not likely to be funded in the private sector. And so it's so important that this does get done by the federal government. And this is the organization that we as an American people have stood up to do that. And so then, I think that we've done a good job of kind of trying to share the importance of NIOSH to people. And so now I want to see how y'all are. How are you thinking about these cuts? I mean, this is 2/3 of the workforce, 900 of 1,200 people total. You said that, Kathy, that there were 400 folks in Morgantown. I'm interested in how many people are affected in Morgantown, and what is this going to do to your ability to execute this incredibly socially important mission? And we can start with you, Kathy.
It's going to devastate it. I mean, it totally destroy it. I've received a notice that for the union that we would have 185 people rift. We have 185 bargaining unit employees. So when you have the 185, then you talk about all the administrative management supervisors on top of that. We also have the Commission Corps. I don't know if you're familiar with Commission Corps. It's like the public health army of HHS, and they will not, I'm sure, be able to be in Morgantown. They will be transferred to other sites. We have contractors. The contractors, if we're not there, collecting the specimens and such and doing the work, they're not going to be there. Overall, it's a total of 400 persons that will be impacted in this small Morgantown, West Virginia community. So there's a whole community aspect to it. The work itself will just disappear because there's no way there will be anyone to be able to do it. So, lives will be lost. People will be less healthy, more injured. It's devastating.
Anita, how are you reacting to this?
Well, the thing that I find troubling is in the letters that the group that everyone got saying they were essentially fired. And I'm reading verbatim. It says that this is being done in order to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the Department of Health and Human Services and to make America healthier. What? How are you going to make America healthier if the workers in America have things taken away from them that were making them healthier? And then they were told that their duties were unnecessary or virtually identical to duties being performed elsewhere. That's 100% wrong. The things that NIOSH do is not being done anywhere else in the United States or in the world for that matter. Even outside of the US, we have done a lot of collaboration with other countries as far as keeping their workers, safe and healthy, and actually traveled at that country's expense. They would bring us to their country to advise them on how better to take care of their emerald miners and their copper miners, and right. That's going to be lost as well. So, it's the letter that they got was, to me, if I had been still there and got that, not only is it sad, I would have been insulted, totally insulted at the work I had done.
That is, I just don't, I don't know what to say. That's so, so gross.
Yeah.
And so, Kathy, obviously this is incredibly problematic. People, like you said, people are probably going to die from this. And the idea about making America healthy while firing the people who are responsible for investigating the health of people on the job and what is healthy and what's not. If y'all had not been here, we could still be scratching our heads at why a decade ago only 1 in 30 miners who had been in the mines for 20 to 24 years had black lung, and now it's 1 in 5. We could still not know why that was happening, but we do with a very, very high degree of certainty because of NIOSH. And if you aren't here for the next time that we have something like that happen, I mean, it's just going to be, we're not going to know how to fight it. Now we're still not fighting it like we should be. I mean, the new silica rule, I think it's been implemented, but, the Trump administration has been talking about rolling it back. And so we're still not fighting it with the level of rigor that we should be, but we at least know what needs to be done. And for the next time, we're not going to know what needs to be done. And so, this is very problematic. Kathy, how, you're the president of the local union there. How are y'all reacting to this as a union locally and nationally?
We're just trying to get the word out. We right now it seems to be really easy to have this no-faced federal employees that are the reason that the nation is in debt. And if we just get rid of a bunch of them, and what we're trying to do is say, no, we're your neighbor. You know me. Right. I'm going to work every day. I'm working for making workers safer. And we talk a lot about the coal team, but it's also maybe the construction worker that's grinding on a material of some sort, that then those particulates are in the air. So what safety PPE do they wear? What are some of the other limitations of making sure they're working safely in a safe environment do they need? And if it's not looked at, no one knows. So those workers will continue working without even knowing what they're possibly in danger of. Another thing that's maybe people have heard about recently are these forever chemicals. Yep. And we've started some research on that. And I think that's going to be a huge effort, would have been in the future if we were allowed to continue, because all of this is something that needs to be researched, or I just find it so devastating. I'm without words most of the time because it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, well, and the forever chemical stuff is, and that is something that I have heard. I haven't heard RFK specifically talk about that, but I hear the RFK types talking about forever chemicals, the crunchy kind of like, holistic kind of folks who are now like big Trump supporters, and like whatever, right? All power to you if you want to support who you want to support. But this is crazy, right? I mean, we're talking about these forever chemicals that it's just like pumping our bodies full of plastics. And here we have an organization that was about to embark on a huge, study of this and the effects that it's doing to people, which I'm of the mind that it's super bad. It seems to me that it's really bad, and we need more research on it, and we need to figure out what we can do to stop it. And we're hindering our ability to do that. I'm sorry, Anita, you were about to say something,
Jacob. Yeah, just to put this in perspective, I just want to give you a statistic that that I don't know if you know about. NIOSH's budget only comes out to about $2.20 per worker annually, $338 million. So while occupational injuries and illnesses cost the U.S. about $250 billion a year. So even small improvements in workplace safety and health can generate substantial savings for healthcare costs, workers' compensation, loss in productivity, And I go back even to the coal team, and with our budget that we operated on, which was a very small budget, it was coming out to like $3 per miner of government money that was being spent on them. So don't tell me that cutting this is going to save you all that much money, when if you're not studied, it's going to cost 250 billion if these people get sick. It's ludicrous. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. $2 per worker per year is what we're talking about.
$2.20.
And 20 cents. Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I don't want to be spreading misinformation on my programs.
And Jacob,
Yeah, go
I
ahead,
think
Kathy.
you can hear from both of us that we're passionate about this.
Yeah.
People do not get into public health work unless you care and you want to make a difference.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you're not getting rich off of this.
Oh, no.
Right? I mean,
Oh, no.
I mean, I don't know.
No.
Do you mind sharing what your GS level is?
I can tell you that for the coal team.
Okay, what is it?
Which is very interesting, because that program, the program that goes out and does all of that for the coal miners, is ran pretty much with a staff of 11 people. 11 people do both the in-office work and the mobile work. And we have 2 commissioned officers in the U.S. Public Health Service, and we have 6 other people that are a grade GS7.
Oh my God.
And 2 contractors that do data entry for us. That's yeah. So I'll tell you, our budget, the budget for the coal team, or the coal program, in 24 was $466,000. The contractors, and because we have to contract with our B readers or with physicians to read and interpret these films for us, they're not NIOSH employees. The contractors accounted for $275,000, and the rest of the program operated on $191,000 per year, $3 per coal miner. So you're right. Wow. These people aren't getting rich.
And especially with your specialized experience, you couldn't get paid to do the work that you're doing in the private sector, but you could probably find a private sector job to get paid. I mean, maybe I don't know what are the prospects for people that used to work at NIOSH that are not going to have this as an option potentially. I mean, Lord willing, we can stop this and we can get these people back on the job, and that's what we're all hoping for. But if that doesn't happen, what are the employment prospects for folks like this? Like, what other kind of jobs exist out there? And am I correct in assuming that they could probably get some sort of better paying job in the private sector just working for the other team, frankly?
Yeah, probably most of them could. It's crazy, because the people that worked at NIOSH and are commissioned officers and all, they are very specialized, and so some of them are really worried about finding another job where their expertise and all the years that they've spent in public health would be valued or would even count. For instance, I just want to tell you a quick story. There's a CO who is now, I'm not going to say which facility, but she is the only person in her building. Okay. And the way the COs have to go through this firing, as I call it, is different than the GS employees, in that they have a place where they can go and look and see what commissioned officer positions are open around the nation, and then they can apply for them. But most of those are doctors and nurses and like that. So the ones that are specialized as epidemiologists and all don't really have a lot to bid on. If they haven't been vetted already, like if they haven't had enough time in the commission corps, they lose everything. They lose their retirement. And so a lot of these people in their 40s, it's like they're going to be just starting their career if they have to start over. But this particular person, too, being the only person in the building, at the last day that the employees were there, the janitor came to her and said, I'm going to have to come with me. I'm going to have to show you how to start the boiler in this building, because there's not going to be anybody here to do it. And my guess is that before very long, the electricity and heat and everything in this building will be shut down, because there's nobody here to even pay the bills. Now, is that the way to treat any employee? You're going to be sitting here in a building with no heat and no electricity, or it's just not the way to treat workers or people. And that's probably my biggest beef with the whole thing. It was just all federal employees were lumped into this category of you're lazy, you don't do anything, when I would venture to say that if I were to ask the people that were behind this, tell me what NIOSH does, they wouldn't even be able to put a sentence together about what we do. And that's what upsets me the most.
Yeah. It's very disheartening, and I don't think that people voted for this. I don't think this is what people wanted to see. I think the work that y'all do is really important, and I think that most Americans could recognize that. So Kathy Tinizara, Anita Wolf, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Y'all have been great guests. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we let you go?
For me, it's just to the public out there, get the word out, call your senators, call your congressmen, and just tell them, that you need NIOSH, and that you understand now how much you do need NIOSH, even though you didn't know it before. Kathy?
Yeah, yeah, we're all still just devastated. I'm sorry. It's been we've been trying to get the word out and just let people know, what we do and how important it is to them. It's not just any one of us. It affects everybody. And so, just the more we can get the word out so that people know what is at stake with this process. Thank you so much, Jacob.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. So there you go. That was Kathy Tinizara, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 3430 at the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health in Morgantown, West Virginia, and Anita Wolf, a retiree from the same. Just to let y'all know, I've been a federal employee for a long time. Folks, a GS-7 in that specialized environment is crazy. The starting pay for a GS-7 is $55,000 a year in Morgantown. The top pay after the Step 10, which Step 10, GS-7 Step 10, would take you like 20 years or something ludicrous to get to, okay? So, but if you did get to a Step 10, that would be $72,000. That is not a lot of money for the kind of work that they were doing. I mean, that's crazy.
Are we still on the air, Jacob?
Oh, yes, you are. I thought, yes, you are still.
I just had someone from NIOSH who is listening in, and it's an engineer from NIOSH that just sent me a text and said, let him know that some of the engineers were offered jobs the day after they were fired, and the starting salary was double what they were making at NIOSH. But they're waiting to see if they'll get called back.
There were engineers at a GS-7?
No, not at a GS-7.
Okay.
No, they were a higher grade, but still, when private sector offered them jobs and found out they'd been riffed, it was double what they were making at NIOSH.
Yeah.
But these people are still waiting to see if they're going to get called back because they believe so much in what they were doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so, that's so gross. I mean, I was a GS-12 as a project manager at the Corps of Engineers. We had engineers who were GS-13s. But we were in the Department of Defense, and so so there's more money even for the Department of Defense. But even as working in the Department of Defense, I knew project managers who worked in the private sector who made twice as much money as I did. And I've talked to NLRB attorneys, people who are barred attorneys, right? As a GS like 13, 14. And I know people that were fired from the NLRB that got offers from management side law firms, literally the next week, again making double what they were making in the government.
Sorry, Jacob.
No,
so Anita was talking about the coal team and that being their salary. Yeah, we have a lot of Other areas have a lot of the postdocs, PhD plus, and those are definitely higher graded employees. But at the same time, they believe in what they're doing, and that's why they are here.
Exactly. Yeah. I really appreciate that, and appreciate that you happen to stay on and were able to tell me that from that engineer, because that really illustrates like the problem with what's going on here.
Right.
These people want to serve the American people, and they are willing to take a 50% pay cut to serve you. And RFK Jr. wants to stop that. He doesn't want to allow people to take a 50% pay cut to serve you. It's just so frustrating. Okay. All right. We've got some other stuff to talk about today. We had somebody call in earlier to talk about tariffs. And so let's go ahead and get to that. Let's go ahead and talk about the tariff stuff. Because this is obviously a huge story. And like we were talking about, the stock market has gone down significantly, obviously. What is it right now? I think it was down 10% over the last month. 10.9% over the last month. We are actually down year over year. It's 1.5% lower than where we were a year ago. So, not good, but it is really important to understand that the majority of stocks are held by the rich, right? So I'm not going to get super pressed about the stock markets. And I also just want to underscore again, the only reason or the reason that most working people are tied to the stock market at all, to the extent that working people are tied to it, is with our 401ks, which it is important to underscore and remind people that 401ks are a scam by the rich because they don't want to pay us pensions, right? They don't want to have to agree to a defined benefit, so they went to 401ks. It was a scam by the rich and their politicians like Ronald Reagan. And so, if it hurts 401ks, that just illustrates the problem of 401ks being tied to the stock market, right? So, but obviously, the stock market going down is still, it's usually not good for workers. That usually does not, even though, because when the rich take a beating, a lot of times they take it out on working people. And so there's some cause for concern there, but, this is coming from a broad-based tariff policy, which I mentioned was slapdash. It's worth understanding just how slapdash it is. The tariffs, my understanding is that they include things like coffee from Colombia, and it's much more difficult to do coffee in America, especially coffee for all Americans, right? Just because of the climate. Bananas. Tariffs on bananas. We're not going to have a banana industry in the United States. Okay, right? And so that's it doesn't make sense. There's also tariffs that were announced on literally uninhabited islands. And so very slapdash. Not a whole lot of thinking about it. But here's some unions' response to it. The United Steelworkers said, "Our union has been fighting on the front lines for fair trade for decades as flawed trade agreements and other policies robbed workers of their jobs and deprived our nation of critical capabilities across key sectors. Used strategically, tariffs are a... let's see. Give me just a second. Sorry. Used strategically, tariffs are a crucial means of reining in bad actors who view access to the U.S. market as a right and not a privilege. Today's announcement helps send the message to our trading partners that they must earn that right. Tariffs, however, are only one of the many tools we need to promote fair trade and reverse course on outsourcing and offshoring jobs. First and foremost, we must ensure our trade policy We must ensure our trade policy targets cheaters rather than trusted economic allies like Canada. We should be working to build relationships, not barriers, with partners who have proven their commitment to joining us in tackling global overcapacity. Tariffs must also be paired with policies that will increase domestic production and jobs, like strategic investments, strong procurement standards, and labor laws that boost workers' access to labor unions. The administration must also take steps to prevent companies from using tariffs as an excuse to price gouge consumers. We welcome the administration's commitment to fair trade and encourage President Trump to consider a broader strategy that will level the playing field and promote widespread economic growth. And so there you go. You know, that's kind of that's kind of been, you know, a common sort of, like, there's a line here that unions are, you know, we're supportive of tariffs, but the way that Trump is doing it is very concerning. Here's the AFL-CIO. The strategic use of tariffs can be an effective tool to support our industries and protect jobs at home, but they must be accompanied by policies that invest in our manufacturing base and a strong commitment to promoting workers' fundamental right to organize trade unions and bargain collectively. Unfortunately, the Trump administration's attack on trade union workers' rights at home, gutting of the government agency that works to discourage the outsourcing of American jobs, and efforts to erode critical investments in U.S. manufacturing take us backward. We will continue to fight for fair trade, or for trade policy that prioritizes the interests of working people without causing unnecessary economic pain for America's working families. Here is from the UAW. Let's see. Do we have a press release from the UAW on since they announced the tariffs? No, it doesn't look like we do. I thought we did. But he has, Sean Fain has been talking about this, obviously, in interviews and stuff like that. I thought there was a statement. Let me see if I can find it on the UAW's Twitter, maybe, because I'd like to read from it if I can find it. And apologies for not having all of this prepped. I am, I'm a busy guy. What can I say? I have a job as well as, being a union official and then doing a radio program. So, Jonah Furman has been talking about it a lot on Twitter. Jonah Furman, the communications director with the United Auto Workers. Let's see. I don't know. I'm not seeing it. Oh, well. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I don't see this, but you know, the UAW has been supportive of it, and they have been doing a bunch of interviews about it. Here is Sean Fain on Face the Nation talking about why he supports tariffs generally.
We go now to the president of the United Auto Workers Union, Sean Fain. Sean, it's great to have you with us. I appreciate the time. Let's start very simply on the question of tariffs on autos and auto parts. Fundamentally and quite simply, why do you believe those are helpful for your membership?
Thanks for having me. Look, all you have to do is look at the history of the United States, especially in auto manufacturing in the last 30 years with the inception of NAFTA and unfair trade laws. We've seen over 90,000 manufacturing facilities leave the United States. We've seen, in the big three alone in the last 20 plus years, 65 plants have closed. And so, look, tariffs aren't the total solution. Tariffs are a tool in the toolbox to get these companies to do the right thing, and the intent behind it is to bring jobs back here and invest in the American workers.
All right, there you go. And so there you go. You can see there that he's pretty bullish about it. And we do have thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. Ben sent me a statement. I thought they had put one out from the United Auto Workers. Here's what they had to say. For 40 years, we've seen the devastating effects of so-called free trade on the working class. Corporations have been driving a nonstop race to the bottom by killing blue-collar jobs in America to go exploit some poor worker in another country by paying poverty wages. Tariffs are a powerful tool in the toolbox for undoing the injustice of anti-worker trade deals. We are glad to see an American president take aggressive action on ending the free trade disaster that has dropped like a bomb on the working class. There's been a lot of talk of these tariffs disrupting the economy, but if corporate America chooses to price gouge the American consumer or attack the American worker because they don't want to pay their fair share, corporate America bears the blame for that decision. The working class suffered all the pain of NAFTA, and we won't suffer all the pain of undoing NAFTA. We want to see corporate America, from the auto industry and beyond, recommit to the working class that makes the products and generates the profits that keep this country going. The UAW is in active negotiations with the Trump administration about their plans to end the free trade disaster. We look forward to working with the White House to shape the auto tariffs in April to benefit the working class. We want to see serious action that will incentivize companies to change their behavior, reinvest in America, and stop cheating the American worker, the American consumer, and the American taxpayer. So I appreciate that, Ben. Thank you for sending that to me. There was another UAW announcement or another UAW statement the week prior about the, going over the announcement. And they were just talking, and in that statement, they talked about how there's been so many jobs decline and how there is, some excess capacity. Said right now thousands of auto workers are laid off at Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis following recent decisions by auto executives to ship jobs to Mexico. Across a dozen Big Three auto plants that have seen major declines, production has fallen by 2 million units per year in the past decade, while millions of vehicles sold here are made with low-wage, high-exploitation labor abroad. And so that means auto companies that have made record profits get to drive wages down further for both Mexican and U.S. workers, while Wall Street and the corporate class get record payouts. And so they point to a lot of excess capacity that could be utilized in the United States. And they point to Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, specifically, where the company recently violated labor law by unilaterally announcing the elimination of a shift during the first contract negotiations. Volkswagen makes 75% of their North America product in Mexico for $7 an hour, and over 40% of their U.S. sales are produced by workers earning poverty wages in Mexico. That shift could be restored immediately as production shifts back to Mexico. And so there you go. But even Sean Fain, as bullish as he's been about the trade, about these tariffs, he even hedges a little bit on this, and that's kind of illustrating, even the most bullish union person on these tariffs still has some concern, and the tariffs themselves are not going to be enough to bring good-paying union jobs to this country. Listen to Sean Fain talking about what else is needed.
And the other thing to me is, these can't just be as with the Biden administration when they did the stuff for battery work and EV work. We had to come in and say, no, these can't just be union jobs or jobs. They got to be good-paying union jobs that set standards. So the big part of this that gets left out a lot of times is if they're going to bring jobs back here, they need to be life-sustaining jobs where people can make a good wage, a living wage, have adequate health care, and have a retirement security, and not have to work 7 days a week or multiple jobs just to scrape to get by paycheck to paycheck.
So there you go. That's very, very important stuff there. There have been a couple of articles written about tariffs for labor notes that kind of are a little bit more pointed about the concerns that workers and union members should have about tariffs, and it's really important to point to that. And so this is an article by Sean Crawford in Labor Notes. Will Trump's tariffs be good for auto workers? He said, during the 2019 General Motors strike, while my fellow workers and I were pounding the pavement, something inspirational was happening at the south of the border. Mexican auto worker Israel Cervantes, along with many others at a GM plant in Silao, refused overtime in solidarity with us during that strike. And he said that practical action was particularly helpful to our cause because they built large trucks, which are the main source of revenue for our common employer. Israel was fired soon afterwards, and he went on to help build the National Independent Union for Workers in the Automotive Industry in Mexico, ousting an employer-friendly union in Silao. That new independent union has just won 10% raises for Mexican GM workers. And so he's talking about how as these talks grow, He's concerned about the relationships that the UAW is building in Mexico, and if this is going to hurt workers in, if this is going to hurt the relationships that need to be built between workers in the United States and Canada and Mexico. He says that cross-border solidarity strikes at the heart of one of the mechanisms that enable the corporate class to dominate. It's global reach. Giant corporations help write international trade laws. When they cross borders, they are diversifying in investor logic, pitting one set of workers against the other. When one part of their operation is on strike, they can continue in another, and that's why they wanted overtime from the workers in Silao when we were on strike here. Divide and conquer is the name of the game. And so, coming together and actually refusing to be pitted against each other is really important. And so, he points out that the UAW is hoping that after the U.S. lost 700,000 jobs because of NAFTA, that punitive tariffs are going to incentivize domestic production and build the U.S. manufacturing base. But Crawford mentions that if the company doesn't give it to you in writing, then don't believe it. That's a truism in bargaining with the company, right? He said these tariffs promise exactly 0 new factories will be built, but a couple of things are certain. Vehicle prices will go up, perhaps by as much as $6,400, because auto companies will pass on any tariff costs to our car buyers, and production will be disrupted due to decreased sales and logistical wrangling, which likely means layoffs, and Michigan could be hit the hardest. To do something as major as build a factory, companies need a safe bet. They need a consistent policy that provides long-term incentives to justify such a move. Trump has already shown that his policies are anything but consistent. An impulsive man's fleeting whim is hardly justification to build an entire plant with all the logistics, supply chains, and investments that come with it. And even if a company decided to build a new factory in the U.S., it would take a couple of years to complete, whereas other nations could have imposed retaliatory tariffs by the time you read this. When Trump was asked about the impact of tariffs on prices, he said, I couldn't care less because if the prices on foreign cars go up, they're going to buy American cars. Sean Crawford says the reality check is that GM and Ford also build vehicles in Mexico and Canada, as well as relying on parts flowing across borders for vehicles assembled there. Peter Navarro, a senior trade advisor to the president, says the American people should simply trust in Trump. And so there you go. There's the article's obviously a lot longer. I can only hit a few points of it, but there's some good pushback there, and it's definitely worth reading. Again, the title of the article is "Will Trump's Tariffs Be Good for Auto Workers?" Sean Crawford in Labor Notes. There's another article, this one in Jacobin, "Tariffs Aren't Enough to Protect Good Auto Jobs" by Andrew Elrod. Some good points made in there. So encourage y'all to read those if you get the time. Also had somebody message me that on the stocks diving, in the absence of worker protections during actions that cause these kinds of downturns, one of the first costs to cut in order to gain back stock value is the workers, and that's exactly true. And so I kind of mentioned that, but just to put a point on that, I'm not going to lose any sleep about stock prices themselves going down, but it's worth noting stock prices going down, not typically good for workers. Stock prices going up, not necessarily good for workers either. Stock prices going down, probably not good. So there you go. Let's talk about project labor agreements. Project labor agreements are, they're kind of in the weeds, but it's worth understanding what they are. Project labor agreements are agreements between a developer and the local building trade unions, not saying it's only going to be union people on this job. No. Just setting the pay scale, setting a minimum for wages, working conditions, safety, and training, stuff like that on a job site. And so with that PLA, union and non-union contractors can bid from the work, right? They can bid from that work, and they can do it. They just have to pay union pay scales to do it. And so these are really important tools to make sure that construction work doesn't go to the lowest bidder, to the person who is going to be exploiting their workers the hardest, setting a fair playing field for union and non-union contractors to compete on. President Biden, during his administration, issued an executive order saying that all federal construction over $35 million has to have a project labor agreement. And so that's good. And it actually has not been revoked by the Trump administration. And yet, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of the Department of Defense, has issued an order saying that project labor agreements are barred on Department of Defense construction work. And so this has actually affected our community right here in Huntsville, where the Missile Defense Agency had new work that was going to create some 200-300 construction jobs, potentially. And they had already agreed to a project labor agreement with the local building trade unions. Again, not all of that work was going to go to union members, but it was going to all be at the union pay scale, okay? And actually, it was going to be, I was talking to the president, or I was talking to somebody in the building trades the other day, and they told me that actually a majority of the workers on that job were going to be non-union, but they would be paid at the union pay scale. Well, that project labor agreement has been torn up. They're going to have to completely rebid all of that work, and now it will likely go to non-union contractors that can pay as little as that can pay down to the Davis-Bacon level of wages. And so the Davis-Bacon is a federal law that sets minimum wages on federal construction projects. And so I was talking to somebody in the iron workers, and they said that the Davis-Bacon pay for an iron worker in the area, the minimum is $18 an hour. And a union journeyman iron worker, their total compensation is something like $50 an hour, right? And so you could be literally looking at a situation where previously we were going to have 200 to 300 people from the community locally getting paid at a union pay scale, something like $50 an hour, total compensation, healthcare, retirement, pension, etc. To now you could be having non-union contractors coming from outside of the area, getting all of these 200 to 300 jobs, and paying literally half of what these folks would have gotten. And so this is just, it's really terrible what's happening with construction in the federal government right now. And Katie Britt wants to exacerbate it. Katie Britt wants to lower wages for construction workers. That would be the effect if her proposed legislation went into law. Katie Britt has proposed legislation to ban project labor agreements on all federal construction projects. This is saying just taking it off the table completely. And so this would lower wages for construction workers. No doubt about that. And of course, the non-union associated builders and contractors are celebrating it. They love this because they don't want to pay their construction workers very much money. And now, the good faith kind of argument for this is that, project labor agreements, they cost more money. You just said that a union iron worker can make more than double what a non-union iron worker makes. So that means that, even if maybe I find it objectionable that they're paying iron workers so little, at least it's saving the taxpayer money. Well, that is contested, actually. And in fact, a new report out of the Illinois Economic Policy Institute just found that project labor agreements, not only do they not increase costs totally, they actually lower costs and they boost competition. The way that they do that is because by utilizing project labor agreements and by utilizing people who are paid the union standard, by utilizing people who have gotten the union level of education and safety training and things like this, you are less likely to have to go and rework. You are less likely to have accidents on the job, which cost money. You are less likely to go over schedule. You are less likely to go over budget. And so when you account for all of those cost-saving mechanisms, then you end up actually lowering the total cost of the project. There's also obviously studies that allege the opposite thing, but the consensus of the data is mixed, right? There is no consistent data showing that project labor agreements actually ultimately increase the cost to the taxpayer by any significant margin. Some studies say they cost a little bit more. Some studies say they cost a little bit less, whatever. But it's not that much money. And frankly, even if it did cost more money, 5, 10, 15% more, that is something that we should be okay with because this is our tax dollars. Our tax dollars should not fund a race to the bottom where we can have people being paid subpar wages while the CEOs of these fly-by-night non-union contractors rake in all of the excess money, right? Our taxpayer dollars should fund high road model employer labor. They should be setting the standard. They should be setting the standard for jobs in an industry. Anytime that tax dollars are used, we should not be looking for the cheapest thing that we can buy with tax dollars because we do not want to be a part of that incentive structure that leads to exploitation, that leads to deaths on the job, that leads to people not being able to, fund their students' college and things like that, right? Or fund their kids' college, I mean. And so there you go. Katie Britt wants to decrease construction worker wages in Alabama and across the country because she loves, she loves the non-union contractors. They donate a lot to her campaigns. So there you go. All right. Well, I'm told that we do not have a clip in the queue that I was going to be reacting to. So 844-899-TVLR is the phone number. 844-899-8857. If we don't have anybody call in, we'll probably just go ahead and wrap it up early because I got to get to this. Rally. So. RDG York guy says, now Mississippi would like to get rid of state income taxes. Yeah, that's terrible. A terrible idea. This guy with a Russian name says, bring child labor back. I'm assuming that is not, that's a joke. We do have a caller in the queue. This one from a 256 area code. Caller from a 256 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Jacob, this is Joe, and I'm going to be real quick. Two things. Maybe you can answer this question. What is the parking like over at Big Springs Park for somebody like myself that's kind of slow walking around? Is it a long way?
No, there are parking spots that you can get to that are pretty quick or that are pretty close to where we're going to be. We're going to be at the gazebo. So yeah, there are some parking spaces that are pretty good. That you should be able to find, yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'm going to try my best to be there. I wanted to give a shout-out to Local 88T here in Decatur and Roger Terry, the chairman over there. He called me a couple of weeks ago and wanted me to come over to the hall and help him put an arbitration case together. It was the first case that he had handled, and I got the chance to go over there and do that. And when I got there, Roger had his case laid out on the table, and his preparation was as good as I ever seen in an arbitration case. We went over the details of what was going on. It was a discharge case of about a 7, 8, 9, 10-year employee. I don't remember, but they actually went to arbitration this past week, and of course, the company burden was on them, so they had to go first. And they presented their case and took a little break before the union went on, and the company decided that they wanted to settle that case short of having to pay all the arbitrators' bills and so forth, so on. But what I wanted to say was, when I looked at the evidence that they got in discovery, I couldn't believe my eyes as to why they hadn't settled this thing in the first place. And that's what I left Roger with. I said, Roger, you got your case together. There ain't nothing I can really suggest. I just can't believe that they're going to continue on with this thing. Well, lo and behold, it did come down to them deciding to back off. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is 88T's a member of our labor council, and Roger done a good a job as I ever seen. I didn't have any real input other than a little moral support for him, but just wanted to shout out and give him congratulations on winning that case. And make sure people remember, if you get discharged unjustly at a non-union place, take it and go home.
Yep.
If you got a union, just cause should prevail in the end, and it did in this case. We'll make
and so this guy got his job
Jacob.
back.
Did get his job back. Now Roger did tell me that, and I don't know how much I should really tell, but there was a non-disclosure agreement on the award of back pay.
Right.
And I think that kind of related to the union knowing this guy was not long from retirement anyway,
mm-hmm.
and may not even want to come back after all this, but he still did get a financial settlement out of it.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you letting us know that, and that's a really good point. Unjust firings in a non-union workplace are basically not a thing. It's not, it's not unjust to fire you in a non-union workplace unless it's like literally illegal, like discrimination or something like that, right? But in a union workplace where you have just cause, they actually have to, management actually has to do their job and actually has to have a reason for firing you. So I know that management hates that. I know that management hates having to do their job and justify themselves, but they do in a union workplace, and I'm glad to see that the union won out again here in this case. So that's really exciting news. Thanks for letting me know, Joe.
If you get a chance, talk to Roger personally about it, and he'll tell you what he really wants you to know. I wanted to say one more thing. Tariffs and 401ks, I see on the Facebook bunches of folks who ain't got no money to start with. The same bunch that was beating up Biden and look at your 401k. Well, they're crickets on this, but some of them is jumping up and saying, buy, 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 buy. Now's the time to buy. Well, I'd suggest to these folks that's jumping up and hollering, buy, 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 go get a second mortgage on your house and put it in the dang stock market and see where you come out. And that'll show if you really got the guts to do it. Thanks, Jacob. I'll try to see you after a while, man.
All right, brother. Appreciate it.
See you, man.
All right. There you go. 844-899-TVLR if you want to leave us a voicemail. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. You can find us online, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, all at the Valley Labor Report. Subscribe to our newsletter, TVLR.fm. Donate to the program, TVLR.fm/donate. Buy our merch, TVLR.fm/store. Go to labornotes.org/events to see what kind of trainings and stuff they have coming up. And, there you go. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. All power to the workers.